So the question people have been asking all week, how could a used car salesman who routinely wore mismatched socks and couldn't find his own car keys be the primary suspect in $1.5 million plot, an alleged plot to assassinate the Saudi ambassador on American soil? Critics say it sounds like a parody of a spy novel, and a bad one at that. Nevertheless, administration officials, starting with the president, say that the evidence is solid.
He had direct links, was paid by and directed by individuals in the Iranian government. Now, those facts are there for all to see, and we would not be bringing forward a case unless we knew exactly how to support all the allegations that are contained in the indictment.
Michael Leiter served as director of the National Counterterrorism Center until recently and joins me now. Michael, you understand the reasons for skepticism. I laid that out. But you say that the case is solid in terms of how far it goes.
I think it is, Andrea. I understand people's skepticism, but if you look at the facts that are in the indictment now, what you have was an individual who admits he was funded, directed, and controlled by people he believed were the Quds Force. You have a confession, you have phone calls linked back to Iran, and you have money traced back to Iran. I think those add up to a pretty strong case.
But what they do not have, and what the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee laid out yesterday after she was briefed by the FBI, Senator Feinstein said there is no proof that it went to either the Ayatollah Khomeini, the supreme leader, or President Ahmadinejad, correct?
That is correct. And to the extent people are skeptical about how high it goes in the Iranian government, I think that's a legitimate question. But those are also the facts that are less likely to be released into the public realm because likely they include very sensitive sources and methods about what and who knew what in the Iranian government.
What would possess Iran to have even tried to escalate? Let's assume that it's true. Why would Iran have taken this step? Using such a poor vehicle? This guy was really a bungler, ham-handed to start with. What could be the justification for that?
Well, I think Iran views itself as in more of a battle than maybe we in the United States appreciate. The fact is that they've had several nuclear-linked scientists assassinated over the past several years. The Stuxnet attack on some of its nuclear infrastructure.
Which compromised their nuclear progress.
Exactly. And we also have to remember that Iran has been actively engaged in targeting U.S. forces in Iraq and potentially Afghanistan. So in this sense, although this is obviously a real change in their tactics, they already view themselves as being in a pretty hot war with us.
At the same time, many people are arguing that the Quds Force has always been viewed as a really elite and competent team, headed by Qasem Soleimani, who is a veteran spy master. Why would they, again, do something that was such a bungled operation?
Well, first I would suggest that not every intelligence operation is quite as James Bondish as people expect. So were there some amateur aspects of this? It certainly looks like that. But all that being said, the attempt to use a Mexican drug gang, although risky in some ways, would also potentially be effective at hiding Iran's hand. This is, again, a new area for them to work within North America. I think that also increases the likelihood of them bungling this operation, which obviously they did. And finally, we got a good, lucky break here. Imagine that the person to whom they're speaking is not a DEA informant. This plot evolves in a very, very different way.
What's the risk here, long term, as the U.S. tries to rally the world, whether that works or not? The fact is that Iran and the Saudis are really in battle formation against each other.
Well, this is a regional rivalry of really important national security proportions. Clearly, there's been tension between Saudi Arabia and Iran on other fronts, in Bahrain, in Yemen, in northeastern Saudi Arabia. And this obviously brings the stakes up in that game to a level that we really haven't seen before.
And briefly, do you have any doubt that they would have brought in the president, the attorney general, the FBI director, at every level of the U.S. government, briefed the Senate? I mean, people have been burned by the WMD fiasco back, in the Bush years, and so a lot of people are very skeptical.
I understand that, but having served in both a Republican and a Democratic administration, in my experience, you do not inform the president. You do not bring the Attorney General and the FBI director unless you are very confident. And I think that the evidence, which is already made public in the indictment, shows that there was clearly a Quds Force associated plot to perpetrate an attack against the Saudi ambassador here in the United States. Exactly how high that knowledge goes, that's a little bit more difficult question, but there's knowledge there at some level, and even that is a really serious escalation by Iran, in my view.
Michael Leiter, thanks for your expertise.
My pleasure.
Great to have you with us.